Joining us now, Hugh Joyce. He's the owner, president, CEO, and founder of James River Air. I love James River Air because they do such a fabulous job. In fact, I got to call them up today. I need a split in our studio in South Richmond because the one that I have is, well, it's a wall unit. It's on its last leg, so we got to get that replaced. And he's joining us now, Hugh Joyce. Great to have you, Hugh.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, Hugh. You know, you're a small business owner in Central Virginia. You've started this business from scratch, family business, James River Air, great company, by the way. Tell us about your employees, your company, how you fare through all this.
Well, listen, thanks, John. Thanks for having me on. And first, my dad actually founded the company, so it's a second generation, and we have third generation family members working in the business now. So it is a great business, and it's a great business because we've really got some wonderful people that work here and go out and take care of our clients. And we are, have been deemed a necessary business, and so we have been open through this crisis, and we have been operating, not as it was a normal time, but we've been very, very lucky in that the majority of our team is here. Some people have left the firm as a result of declines in business. So, it's a difficult time, but we are operating and, able to take care of clients, both commercial and residential. And a lot of what we do can help them, manage not only the coronavirus, but, mold, mildew, pollen, other airborne diseases. A lot of things. This is being attentive to the air and the indoor environment is not just important today. It was important yesterday. It's going to be important to tomorrow. So we work with the clients and help them, understand that. But this is as you've been saying and talking about, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life in terms of a total shutdown of a world. Certain businesses shutting down, employment going from almost full employment to 20% unemployment, record numbers. It is a daunting concept in businesses kind of laying here, it needs to be resuscitated. And while I want to be safe and be attentive to protocols and do the right thing for safety and protecting people, and we're doing everything we can do on protocols as an entity and support that, we've also got to awaken the people in the economy and get that moving because, we think, and this is in my opinion, that with protocols and approaches, anytime you're sick, moving is better than laying. And so we really think we've got to come up with strategies to, with protocols, being smart, with PPE, figure out ways to move forward. And not so much for James River, but ultimately it will affect us because the people that buy our stuff, if they don't get moving, they won't be able to buy it anymore. And so, we're monitoring this, but it has been an incredibly interesting time.
Well, look, there's studies coming out now. We've been talking about this all morning and for the past several days. I've had a few of Dr. Bogan on yesterday, linchpin in the Stanford study, and New York and USC, and what they're saying now is the number of people infected by COVID-19 have been dramatically understated by up to 85%. For instance, all three studies have a commonality, which is they're finding that about 4% of everybody that comes in has either had it or has it, 4% of all people. So when you start extrapolating those numbers out, the IFR, or the fatality rate, if you would, is somewhere in the 0.1% to 0.2% range, no different than the flu. You take Virginia.
John, we agree with that. I mean, we think this is just my sense of smell on this. We think coronavirus has been here since November, December, and we certainly think that the number of people that have been exposed is millions and millions, not hundreds of thousands. We know in America 1% of the population dies every year. I mean, that's the statistical number. We lose 1%. But so what I would really want to see, and I do think this is a nasty, nasty flu, and we need to be super attentive to it. And I think it's nastier than the regular flu, just how it manifests itself. But I've always said, like you said, I think when all the numbers are in, it's going to be no more than 2x, maybe 3x. If it's the regular flu, not 10x, not 20x, is what we're kind of being. But we don't know these things yet. But to your point, as we see the data begin to accumulate and we have an antibody test, we can kind of figure out how many people really had it. I believe millions have had it, and I believe most of them have not died, obviously. And so the real question is, how do you reconcile that with we focused on our physical health, which is important, but we also need to focus on our economic health. And we've got to keep those two things in balance because at the end of the day, someday, at some point, we're going to have to confront coronavirus as a herd. And we have to figure out what that looks like. So I am supportive of what our political leaders are doing, and they are doing very difficult work. But I think we need to look at broader. And what I would really want to know is the last 10 years. I'd like to look from January 1 to today for Virginia and the nation and the world at how many people died that day and what they died of. And I think if you went back and looked at last year on today's date and the year before and the year before, in Virginia typically we lose about 183 people a day. Coronavirus seems to be killing, if you look at the numbers of 350 or so that are dead, about 6.2 a day. But I think some of those 6.2 per day are getting labeled coronavirus, and they may not be coronavirus. They had some other thing. And I'm aware of one case where the wife is actually challenging the death certificate that says coronavirus, and the husband died of a genetic disease that he had been fighting for 10 years. So I think when all the numbers get in the right buckets, and it's difficult to get them in the buckets because we're working, real time, that statistically it's going to be terrible. It's bad, but it is not. I think what we're seeing today when we get all the data in.
Well, you, Joyce, you nailed it. You, Joyce, President and CEO of James River Air, local company in Virginia, Central Virginia area. Best HVAC company you're going to find. That's all we use. Great people. The service is phenomenal. But I tell you what, when you say, are the policymakers are going to look at the numbers, the answer is only if the numbers back and support their fake narrative. This is reality, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, Governor Ralph Northam puts off elective surgery in Virginia for another week. Now, here are the numbers, right? Let me give you the data. 350 people dead in Virginia, bad. 1,500 people hospitalized. We have 1,700 people hospitalized with COVID-19. We have 5,800 COVID-19 beds available. That means there are 4,000 beds available. 22% of the ventilators on storage in Virginia are being utilized. That means that 78% of ventilators are available. So they have the beds, they have the ventilators, right? The increase in the hospital and the increase in all the numbers the curve has been flattened. Why would you put off elective surgery for another week when hospitals in Virginia are losing $600 to $700 million a month and furloughing workers, putting them on unemployment? What numbers do you have, Ralph Northam, that supports extending non-elective surgeries? And people have they need rotator cuff surgeries. They need to replace their hip, their knee. They got all kinds of issues. They're in pain. Why would you extend that for a week when the numbers don't bear it out, you?
Yeah, John. I didn't see the numbers that Governor Northam looked at, but what I will say is, what I call for here, and I call for good reporting. Somebody needs to dig into the numbers and present them in a way to the American public. Right now, everyone talks about this, but you can't get to the numbers. So what numbers did Governor Northam use to make that?
They'll never give you an answer.
They will never give you an answer. The reporters
They'll never give you an answer.
The numbers are there. The data is there. We've got to get it. And so the point that I'm saying is, I didn't see what his numbers were. I am the same concerned in terms of we've got to get things moving. I am assuming in the back of their mind they're saying we want to keep some runway in front of us in case there's a spike, in case we have a problem. So they by the very nature of being a government or a doctor, and in this case both, conservative treatments, conservative approaches, they're trying to do the right thing. And I do believe in my heart that Governor Northam is trying to do the right thing. Now, I didn't see the data that he had. All I know is the data that I'm looking at, and it's what you just said. Everything is empty. Things seem to be under control. So, to me, I might have made a different decision. I'm not challenging his decision at this point because I didn't look at his numbers. But what I will say is what I know, we have to develop a protocol and a strategy ASAP on how we're going to open up hospitals and bars and gyms and restaurants and theaters and parks so that people can get moving safely with protocols. Because if we don't, we will have irreparable devastation to small business and ultimately to the people of our state and of our country. And what it was going to lead to is poverty. And poverty is going to kill a lot more people than coronavirus will. And I'm not saying that coronavirus, it is nasty. But we've got to balance physical health and financial health together, and so we have focused totally on physical health, and and we should continue to focus there. And I'll just say one thing: we're going to come out of this better. We're going to be more attentive to PPE. We're going to be more attentive to hygiene. I mean, I never used to cook with a mask on. I've started cooking I cook barbecue and do different things. I never used to cook with gloves. I started using gloves. I'm like, this is so much better. I'm using a mask. I'm saying, this is so much better. When I cook barbecue, it keeps everything out of there. So we're going to be better for this, but we've got to find the protocols so that we can move forward sooner rather than later. We've got to communicate them. We have got to start setting a pathway in our state and other states to move out of this and get business moving. It is critical.
Well, you, Joyce, President and CEO, James River Air, Central Virginia, locally owned company, you're right on all points. I mean, the devastation of people's lives and health due to the poverty that's going to set in, due to the shutdown, is never measured. Alcoholism is up. People missing child support payments. What does that do to a family? People getting strokes and heart attacks from just stress, suicides, all the things drug overdose, all the things that are going to go with this. Families broken up, domestic violence. None of this is measured. So you're right about that. But I've moved off that argument now because the numbers that they were giving us no longer support any of these decisions. When Northam made this decision, did a single one of these people from the fake news ask him what you just did? What numbers do you have to base it on? This, what, a UVA study that took $12 million of PPP money, that UVA? No, nobody will give you an answer. It's like they say, well, there could be a spike. Define a spike. 350 people are dead in Virginia from COVID-19, 100 of them in 2 or 3 nursing homes, all right? So what is a spike? Like, define that. Give me a metric. Is that 1,000 people dead or 500? Well, there could be a surge. Well, define a surge. They give you no numbers, no numbers. And the numbers that we have no longer support their narrative. So that's why you're not going to get any numbers, because it no longer supports what they're doing. He can't give a number. He can't get on the media today, the governor, and give you a reason why he extended non-elective surgeries ban for another week. He has no numbers to back that.
Well, I agree. We need to see numbers, and everybody's. But what I am saying is, no one's reporting the numbers. No one is really digging into the numbers. And the first thing I want to know is, what were those numbers for the surgeries? But what are the real numbers? What are the numbers of how many people died yesterday and how many people died last year yesterday, and what caused those deaths? And if someone would start looking at that, I think the clarity will set in. And John, make no mistake about this, back to your point. Clarity is going to set in sometime. And we're going to look back and we're going to say, wow, look at this. And yes, it was bad, and yes, it was terrible death from this, and this particular flu manifests itself in a very nasty way. However, when you look at everything around it, when you look at the number of deaths from cars and opiate overdoses and drownings and all the other things, and when you put all this into perspective globally, this is going to be bad. I just don't know if it's going to be as bad as shutting the whole world down and creating what we're creating. And so we've done that, and we need to now get these numbers, and we need to report on them, and somebody really needs to dig into them that's independent, because I think everyone has a spin on these numbers to get whatever they need, and that's just natural. I'm not criticizing anybody. Everyone takes a number to get what they want. But someone needs to look at these numbers objectively and begin to report on them, which we don't do much anymore in the world. Report on them. What do they mean? Where are they going? And what I do know this, the picture is going to be very different in 6 months than it is today.
You, Joyce, there's going to be a reckoning. Thank you for being with us. President, CEO, James River Airs, my favorite company in Central Virginia. More info at riverair.com.